Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, executives, entrepreneurs, uh, artists, musicians, you name it, in crypto and blockchain all around the world. And I have an amazing guest today coming to us from Switzerland, Gregor Zavcer. He is the director at Swarm. Gregor, welcome.
Hello, it's great to be here and thank you for the invite.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So let me first ask you, what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
I would say so. Let's say my formal background is it started with economics. I've been coding since I've been 11, but yeah, never made it into a formal occupation. Then in around fast forward to something like 2013, I wanted to do more. I was advising a lot startups, mentoring, also have some startup experience myself. I was very much interested in decentralized business models. And I was interested in 2013. I was doing my master's in cognitive science, still doing it. But the research there was about also user modeling and how to work with data. And what I found there very concerning is essentially how far the science is of modeling users and how sensitive the data can be in the wrong hands or in the hands of somebody who knows what to do with that data. For example, like a couple of years ago, we spoke about Cambridge Analytica. That's one of such examples. So when I attended the first Ethereum meetup in Vienna, where Vitalik was giving a speech, it kind of connected because he was speaking about the world computer that consists of Ethereum, Whisper for messaging, and Swarm decentralized storage. And at that point, I knew that peer-to-peer data exchange with decentralized business models is the way to go, especially when we are dealing with sensitive data in an ever-increasing digital world. So it was kind of just the logical extension, and in a way, that moment of epiphany, like I found what I was looking for. And then, yeah, the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, I'm not going to let you get off that easy. So economics and data science, I don't find somebody who has both of that. So what led you to that mix? 'Cause it's really unique.
So here, a small correction. I do not consider myself an expert in data science at all. I did masters in cognitive science. And here it was actually, I mean, there are connections like behavioral economics, and we see a lot of cognitive science approaches being integrated in the economics. But I actually applied for this masters because I wanted something new. I wanted to extend my horizon, so I didn't want like direct connection in that sense. It was more about understanding how we function in an interdisciplinary way. Cognitive science is a combination of psychology, philosophy, anthropology, neuroscience, and AI. So, and then things just connected. I believe that technology and science, if applied in the right way, can really be a force for good. Um, Today, like they say, everything comes good to some use after a while. That combination in a way really works. It's maybe not so much using cognitive science in daily work today, but it's given me also a lot of meaning in the sense of the mission on which we are and the importance of it.
That's a great answer. Thank you. I love that. So let me ask you first, what is Swarm all about, and what makes it great?
So the most straightforward answer would be that Swarm is decentralized data storage and communication platform. that enables a self-sovereign digital society. And that's quite a lot to unpack. It's also experience shows, I would say, maybe you know that story of an elephant and the blind wise men touching the elephant. They touch the elephant at different parts and they all have different idea of what the elephant looks like. So with Swarm, it's also in a way, because it's an infrastructure layer that deals with data and storage, there are many interpretations from the user what actually Swarm is. Some people call it also that it's BitTorrent 2.0 on steroids. Some people describe it as purely decentralized storage. The others say it's the cloud where users are in control. But I would essentially stick. I think it's the most easiest to understand the entry into Swarm is to think of it as decentralized storage.
I interviewed, I think, Philip Piper, who was with Swarm Markets. I don't know if there's any relation between the two companies.
No relation. I also don't know him. Swarm is, there is actually quite a lot of confusion because since Swarm started, many startups, many projects in the decentralized space kind of are using some variation of the Swarm name. And the reason is because, well, Swarm is kind of an illustration of decentralization. So it does have more sense in the decentralized space also to use it. But yeah, there's no relation between these two projects.
Okay, great. So I want to ask you then, and we're going to come back to that idea of self-sovereign digital society a little bit later. I'm going to ask you about that, but I want to find out first to build that up. What's the benefit of Web3 decentralized storage over your centralized storage of, say, Amazon or Microsoft or Google or Alibaba or whatever, in terms of both for users and for providers?
That's a great question. So it's essentially Swarm puts into the driving seat, gives full control to the owners of data. In one way, also, before I go deeper into a comparison, here, what I also like to look at how I see it is that sometimes direct comparisons between AWS and Swarm are maybe a little bit like comparing Google Cloud Compute with Ethereum blockchain. So it's different in that sense. It's different use cases. It's Swarm here enables new kind of interactions and business models. And as an example to give, imagine that us two, that we want to collaborate. And then there comes the question, where do we store the data? And then both of us say, well, we can use my server. And yes, the other person has a little bit, like a problem with that, especially if you speak in the enterprise segment. Now with Swarm, it's essentially, we both know if we put data on Swarm, we are accessing the same data. And we don't need to trust here each other. So in a way, Swarm continues where blockchain ends. Blockchain can be seen as a public database that's presenting sequenced data, while Swarm here extends the blockchain with big data sets, with private and sensitive data, encrypted data in general. So all that sort of data that doesn't have its place on blockchain. That's why it was also the Swarm project was started already initially as part of the World Computer at Ethereum Foundation back in the day. So in that sense, what we also say is that when we speak from the societal point of view, that Swarm in a way brings trust into data economy. It's a bit of an abstract kind of notion, which I hope I illustrated a little bit. It's parallels can be drawn in the same way as blockchain is bringing trust into the financial markets. Now, on the from the perspective of the individual, is that Swarm helps to reclaim privacy for the users by giving them full control and avoiding vendor lock-in. So it's again there can be similarities drawn to how user data how users are in control of their assets on the blockchain. Now, in that sense, I think these are very, very pivotal ideas in the sense that can have like very, very big consequences for how we move as society. Today, as users, we don't have control over our own data. While at the same time, the importance of data and the scope of the digital world and its influence on our physical world is just growing. So data is becoming more important while control is becoming less and less present. And Swarm aims to change this.
One of the things that I noticed when I first got, I'm a database guy. I built databases for 20 years before I got into crypto, right? So I see a need, and maybe you might see this and notify your perspective of enterprises who built their in-house databases being able to switch over to blockchain. How can you help with that?
So how Swarm can help with enterprises that need to switch essentially into the Web3 space, right? It's I think it's again similarities can be drawn to the blockchain space. Every enterprise also needs to think about how does blockchain benefit us? What use cases do work for us? So enterprises here also need to think about how does Swarm and Web3 as a whole benefit us and how we can improve. In that, it's today, I think it would be especially from the enterprise perspective, which is moving a bit slower in terms of adoption of new technologies. I think it shouldn't be even expected that there would be this transition that one enterprise would become now fully hosted on Swarm using just Swarm as its database or data layer. So I think the transition will be gradual. Now, to think about what could be the benefits for the enterprise. Its benefits can be in many ways. I explained one before, like with how different counterparties can work together without the need to trust themselves. Concrete example could be the automotive industry. They all have the pain of having too small data sets to train the self-driving vehicles. So collaborating on these data sets and standardizing them could benefit them all. Another use case, again, with Swarm as coming from Europe. In Europe, GDPR and other data policies are getting big. It's Swarm is in a way naturally suited for that. One thing is personal data is becoming a liability for enterprises. The enterprises don't need to hoard personal data. They are more interested in models they build and how they apply these models. So, so personal data in that sense can be offloaded to the user, and user just agrees to share that data with the enterprise. This also helps with security, decreases honeypots on the enterprise side. All these hacks that we are reading, like this enterprise got hacked, so many hundred millions of records, etc. All this can be actually very much addressed with Swarm. Now, if we combine this with technologies, exciting technologies such as zero knowledge proofs, then we are actually entering whole new paradigms of what can be done. So in a way, this also then reflects on the bottom line of the enterprise, because first, if the enterprises are running Swarm nodes, the hardware is not just a cost. The hardware also creates revenues as a node operator earns rewards. They offset costs of legal and compliance and increase security. So we see that especially in Europe, and we believe also other enterprises will follow Europe because of the legislation and the environment that's already set up. We see many use cases for Swarm in the future.
Excellent. And so right now, like what's going on is, I guess, what you call it as a decentralized storage revolution, or it might be a revolution. I don't know, but one of the goals, right, is to break up these oligopolies, like the FANGMA, Facebook, Apple, they want to hold all the, power or information, and you said they want to offload it anyway, right? So how can this decentralized storage create a fairer, cost-effective, more secure web?
Well, in an abstract way, I would say that it actually creates a dialogue between different parties. In this case, between the user and the big tech companies. At the same time, decentralization, as yeah, strange it may be sounding, can also help with people connecting, forming things like data unions, and basically be an equal conversation partner to the enterprises. So it's about also by introducing new business models and new examples, and through which the public can learn. It's the corporations, the legacy corporate world, so to speak, is also incentivized to adopt new approaches. To basically, it's kind of setting new standards in how we interact, how enterprises interact with the users. Going forward, um, I would actually say that in a way, I mean, this is a challenge, and it's a nice idea. It's more questionable how much it can happen, but if the big titans or enterprises in general would kind of let down the guard and be more open, in a way, I think this can even be a business opportunity for them as well. It does not need necessarily to be this head-on fight. We don't like what you're doing, and now we are going to change that. If they evolve their business models, they it's like they're already sitting on a lot of data. Giving them back to the users can create new trust, new improve relationships, can create better feedback loops to have like good data. Because also what is right now happening is with the surveillance capitalism, it's kind of like chasing the data. There are a lot of wrong predictions, and it's actually there's a lot of bad data. I'm quite sure that Google thinks I'm fairly different person as Facebook thinks. So also by opening the data, it's kind of like, I think there could be even parallels, historical parallels drawn with when labor, when law was introduced, social law was introduced, introducing employment. So it's kind of the core idea was I, as a person, can work for somebody, but that person does not own me. And this kind of helped to actually for the economy to grow a lot more. So in the long term, I think it's an opportunity for all who have, let's say, honest intentions. Those who are not going to adapt, I mean, history has plenty of examples what happens with those. So we'll see.
Oh yeah, I agree. I spent my career at AIG, and yeah, they didn't adapt. Who are they today? Not too far. But, you said um, new ways, right? And you developed a validator network, right? So how does your validator network offer true decentralization, and how does it benefit, and how could that be one way, or what's the status of it?
All right, great question. So to answer this, I will actually first need to explain a little bit about Swarm, how Swarm works. And there are definitely unique approaches to that. So um, in comparison with other decentralized storage solutions, Swarm is actually building one global hard drive, meaning when somebody joins the network, they're not just offering the files they're hosting on their computer, like in the torrent or other solutions. The storage that they provide becomes part of this one global hard disk. And then when the file is or data is uploaded, it's broken down into the 4 kilobyte chunks, which are uniformly distributed across the network. Of course, there's also redundancy in place. There's not just one copy of a chunk in the network, so to speak. So this then, it means it has a couple of consequences. First is one of the features called upload and disappear. In order to host a node, host data on Swarm, one does not need to run a node. One just uploads the data to the network and the data is there. This enables a lot more flexibility, also flexibility in terms of web development, etc., and censorship resistance. Now, for this to work, also nodes in the network need to communicate. There's constant syncing and adjusting of the content in the network because nodes come online, go offline, etc. And this there's always movement. Now, for the data to persist, our team developed, and this has been sort of like an odyssey on its own, that's so-called storage incentives. These storage incentives enable truly decentralized, permissionless persistence guarantees. This is one stream where the node operators are rewarded. Another set of incentives are so-called swap incentives, swap standing for Swarm Accounting Protocol. And these are bandwidth incentives, where basically it goes like, because nodes, how nodes communicate in the network and how also data is requested, it might be I as a user might want to find some data, and maybe your node is closest to the data, and then your node asks another node, etc. So there's kind of traversal of nodes when the data is going from its stored destination to the user. And here again, the nodes are rewarded by providing bandwidth. This also is very helpful because with popular content, so popular content, we can understand some public content, I don't know, some viral video or whatever. It's then the nodes are also incentivized. The node can say, "Oh, I served this chunk already, and I see a lot of people are asking for this chunk, so I just decide to cache this chunk, and I just serve it without next time asking node behind me if they have it, and so forth." What this means is that for popular content, the swap incentives also incentivize the network to work a little bit as a CDN, as a content delivery network. And they serve the cached network, and they kind of compete which node is going to provide that requested chunk sooner. So there's a bunch of things. I would say one of the things that really excites me, and I think this is also a unique feature of Swarm, is that we are just at the beginning of various incentives. And what I mean with this, we are expecting in future to see layer 2 incentives. Let's call it even like something like data DeFi, or I prefer rather to call it fair data, where for specific use cases, specific incentives work better. Be that within, like you mentioned, databases before. When we do search, there are different kinds of search. Sometimes I just want one record as a search result, and sometimes I want a million as a search result. So we expect to see here all kinds of things, and in future, in a way, especially with anonymized private data, we also see that this data can be turned into an asset, and it can enable a whole new data economy layer on top of Swarm.
So you create the data economy layer with a really strong technology and protocol. You give people opportunity and enterprises opportunity there with technical. And then I got to return to a thing that you said earlier, was self-sovereign digital society. What does that look like to you? How do we get there? And how can the role of the community help and be valuable as we approach that, or hopefully approach that? What are your thoughts?
Oh, that's an excellent question. There's a lot of to unpack here. So please do interrupt me if I'm just taking maybe too long to answer. It's maybe a bit controversial in a way. I would say it's even starting with philosophy. And philosophy, in the sense, when we observe our society today and how communication is going, it's philosophy is a good starting point to define the values of the society we want to live in. So today, if that Kant, I think Kant was the one who said, like, if this is missing, then communication is reduced to addressing primal instincts on the going onto the basic things. And we see in today's global conversations, there's a lot of conversation just going to the emotional side, where the reason is kind of switched off. So definitely here, the things that we discuss and the possibilities in the future, also on this podcast here, it starts with the values. Decentralization, I would argue, is a value on in itself. It's also these little details in the sense, we there's this catch. We link democracy to freedom. But philosophers are actually arguing that democracy is not putting freedom on top; it's putting respect of others' person's freedom. So it's kind of these nuances and education to talk about and to define, like, what kind of society do we want to live in the future. This defines what we want to build. Now, to go from the meta level, from the philosophical level, to ground this a little bit more, it's definitely here. This can translate into education, into experimentation, into being open to start using new technologies and new approaches. There, as people or organizations, as you mentioned AIG before, it's like, uh, it's actually, there's tons of books on change management and things like that, but people or organizations, they don't want to change, because sometimes even if something is not optimal, it's just familiar. So in that sense, I think it's going to be a process. It's going to be a process where definitely those who start using decentralized technologies first can teach others about the benefits and the impact of the technologies. Through that we need to figure out, when I mentioned before fair data. What does fair data economy mean? I've seen it, a lot of people, especially in Europe, more and more people are using this term, but there's still not a definition. There's not a definition. We see same problems in the blockchain space, where the regulatory conditions are kind of lagging behind because it's new. So in terms of, I think, building and speaking about it, and education are the most important things. And through that, hopefully we make the transition in a practical sense. I would say that also when we build things, the Web2 solutions have set us a benchmark. So the solutions that we build need to be, first, they need to be on the same level as Web2 in terms of user experience and how it's being used. And then we add on top of it privacy, data ownership, the crypto economics incentives, new possibilities of revenue streams, etc. So there's still a long way. The exciting part is that this, I would say, the only way forward is collaboration. So this can only be done together. And this is the main difference between, when we think of like Google's, Facebook's, etc., these kind of enterprises, they believe they can do everything on themselves for everybody. And collaboration here and how we build this world together is the key.
I agree with you. It sounds great. It sounds like common sense. So, and a lot of people don't think it that way. So, but I want to touch on the philosophy, right? You said philosophy, and you said earlier, you said surveillance capitalism. Why is surveillance capitalism a horrible philosophy?
Because the incentives between the users, the stakeholders, are not aligned. So it's for the within surveillance capitalism, for the enterprise. We can take Facebook as an example, doesn't matter, or just change with Google. It's same thing. So it's well, Facebook lives from ads. In order So for them to grow, they either need more users and they need to show more ads to these users, and users should be reacting to these ads, and this basically grows their profits. So Facebook is incentivized to keep us on Facebook as long as possible. And they're incentivized to know us as good as possible in order to trigger impulsive buying. So these things are not necessarily benefiting us. It's yes, there can be arguments. The better ads we are served, the more convenient it is for us. But it's there still needs to be moderation. There still needs to be temperance. It's and we should be able to opt in. So I would say these are kind of the main points.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. This has been a wonderful conversation. I enjoyed talking to you. And I have one final question. And it's this is how can people find out more information about you, about Swarm, follow you guys, or be a customer or validator? And how can they do any of that?
I would say the easiest is just to go to our website. It's etswarm.org, swarm.org, and there's links to anything. If something is not there, or if someone just doesn't want to scroll, there are also links to our Discord community where we are happy to help. Links to our Twitter profile and other contact points. So we welcome anybody to reach out. Starting on Swarm, it's very easy. One can just download the desktop app, install it, and it runs. So yeah, I invite everybody to join Swarm and be part of building the future we want to live in. And at this point, I would also thank you very much for hosting me. It's been great. I enjoyed our conversation a lot, and looking forward to maybe even meet in person or next time. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to come to Europe someday. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.